Hello, my name is Antonio Lopez Jr. and this is assignment 3 of CSC 300. For this assignment we had to create two programs. The first program was to create a one-dimensional array that includes all numbers between 1 and n with no duplicates and n being the user input. In return we print out the contents of this array, but the numbers are randomly placed in the array indexes so that the array will look different each time. The second program was to create a two-dimensional array that has random numbers between 1 and 100 with the user inputting the number of rows and columns. In return, we print out the array in a spiral order starting from the top left of the array, moving to the right and then spiraling there. So enough said, here's the code. The first section of the code here is basically just asking the user what program they would like to run first. If they choose 1, right, then we will call the 1D array method. If they choose 2, then the 2D array method will be called. And so that's basically the first part. And here we scroll down and to show you the actual methods. So first, in the 1D array method, we are creating a new int named array size to grab the desired length of the array, or also known as n. Then the method creates a new array list with the wrapper class of integer named userArray that has the length of array size. Right. And so here in our first for loop, what it's doing is simply just adding the numbers between 0 to n minus 1, because in arrays, the first index always starts at 0. So that leads me to my next for loop. So what this for loop is doing is it is just basically adding 1 to each of the variables within the array, so that instead of having numbers between 0 to n minus 1, we now have numbers going from 1 to n, right? And that's what we want. And so here for our last for loop, what this is doing is it is making the random swaps within the array, meaning that val1 and val2 are initialized with random numbers within the array's range, and this will determine which indexes in the array will be swapped. So the while loop inside, what this is doing is it's checking to see if val1 is equal to val2. And if that's the case, we are going to keep initializing val2 with a random number until val2 is not equal to val1, because we don't want to swap the same indexes. That's just not going to do anything for us. And so after that's checked, we can now swap the two indexes within the array. And so once that's done, we just simply output the array, and that's the first one. So moving down a little bit to the 2D array method. So first, what this is doing is it is asking the user to input the amount of columns and rows that they want. And so once the program is given those numbers, we create a new 2D array named table that has the size of the columns and rows that the user has chosen, right? And so going down into our first nested for loop, the first nested for loop, what it's basically doing is it's just filling the array with random numbers between 1 and 100, right? So that's the first nested for loop. In the second nested for loop, it's basically just printing out the array as is. It's not doing anything to it. It's just showing you what the contents of this 2D array is. And so once that does that as well, we now go down to line 103, and this is where we call our spiral print method, which is going to give us the output of the numbers in a spiral order. So moving into the spiral print method, so what this is doing is first we create 4 new variables of type int named array T, array B, array L, and array R. T being top, B being bottom, L being left, and R being right. So what this is doing is array T is basically representing the top row, array B is representing the bottom row, array L is representing the left column, and array right is representing the right column. So now looking inside of this while loop, it can basically be summed up and just pictured as being broken into 4 if statements and 4 for loops. The if statements are is what's stopping the loop from printing. So the conditions for these if statements check to see if array T is greater than array B or array L is greater than array R. If this is true, then we set the boolean equal to false and then we break out of the for loop. So the idea behind this is that if the top or left is greater than their counterparts, we have reached an area of the array that has already been printed, and since we don't want to print out duplicates, or repeated numbers, sorry, we want to stop the program, right? And so basically what these for loops are doing is it's just printing out, it's just printing out, well, sorry, let me take it back. The first for loop here, it's only printing out the top rows. The second for loop is printing out the right columns. The third for loop is printing out the bottom rows. And then the last for loop is printing out the left column. And so depending on each for loop and what variable is being used, we either increment or decrement by 1 so that we know what column or row will be printed next, right? So it's just basically moving smaller and smaller within the array. So picture a box getting smaller. That's basically what the variables are doing so that we know that we need to print the inside numbers. Since it's going in a spiral, it's first going to print out the outside numbers and then slowly it's going to make its way inside until it reaches a number, or until it reaches the end, or the end of the array, meaning that there's no more numbers to print. And so that's the code. A little complicated, but here I'm going to show you how it works. We're going to run this. So here we go. So first you are asked, do you want to create a 1D array or 2D array? Enter 1 for 1D array, enter 2 for 2D array. So we're going to go on, and we're going to choose the 1D array. And so now here it asks us what the size of the array you want it to be. We'll go with 5. And so here the contents of the array are 4, 1, 3, 5, 2. And so as you can see here, the array is going from 1 to n, but as I mentioned earlier, the indexes are randomly placed. So if we were to run this again, choice 1, and we enter 5 again, we can see that some of the numbers have been changed. But hold on, let's do this one more time. Okay, maybe let's try a bigger number. So here, 1 to n being 7. Run it again. Okay, there you go. Now you can see that the numbers have been swapped. I don't know why it was being kind of weird. But if we go with another number, oh, sorry. Well, there you go. So if you were to choose a number that's not 1 or 2, it will keep asking you to choose a number between 1 or 2. And so that's that. And so now that is the first array, or the first program. So now we're going to choose the second one. And so please enter the amount of rows. We'll go 3. Columns, we'll go 4. And here it prints out the array, and then here it prints out the array in a spiral order. Now let's run this one more time. Choose 2 rows. This time we'll go 4. We'll go 5. And so here we go. Print it out in a spiral order. And that is basically it. That's the code. Thank you for watching and listening. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys later. Thank you.